For the seasonal theme of May, we have our bridal banner. Today we'll be going over festive wedding themed alts for Lapis, Embla, and a duo for Sharena and Veronica. The engage alts are not over yet, and that includes a surprise newcomer, Nel. We'll talk about everyone's stats and skills, plus discuss general playstyle and build ideas. For this banner, Bridal Nel will be the 4-star focus unit. She will appear at 4-star and 5-star rarity. For those not familiar, Nel is actually from the Fel Xenologue DLC for Engage. She has a twin brother named Nel, who let's just say is a little less stellar in combat than his sister. Unlike Engage's base game dragon characters, Nel actually does transform into a dragon. I'm not terribly surprised to see Nel in the game after seeing how the Ashen Wolves and to an extent Shez has been treated. If you want other Fel Xenologue characters, well, this should be a sign they are definitely possible future units. If you're wondering why Nel is on the bridal banner, I'll let you find that out for yourself, but there are some hints in her artwork. In Fae, Bridal Nel will be a green infantry dragon. For stats, Nel has 40 HP, 42 attack, 46 speed, 30 defense, and 36 res. Speed Super Boon is nice, and this is becoming a very popular dragon stat spread this year. Nel has the lowest base res on the recently released dragons though, which is not the best if you want to run certain dragon specific skills. Unlike the recent Fallen Luminaire, she does have more physical bulk to make up for it. Similar deal compared to the New Year's Connors from earlier. Now, for ult skills, Nel has Reciprocal Aid and 2 very rare tier 3 skills for Attack and Speed Scowl and a Counter Roar. If you wanted to get more skills out of Realm Luminaire, well, here you go. Now, it's a very interesting decision to release an Inheritable Dragonstone right after a new arcane option. Nel's Dragon Bloom Plus is a 14-my Dragonstone. If unit initiates combat or is within 2 spaces of an ally, grant plus for all stats, deal true damage equal to 15% speed, and reduce damage from the foe's first attacks with an S by X% during combat. If it's the first combat in either phase, X is initially 80% damage reduction. For second fights onward in the same phase, it will be 40%. For the most part, Arcane Felstone is kind of just a lot more appealing, potentially double or even triple the amount of bonus stats, Slang plus Breath type cooldown, no follow-up, and still has 40% damage reduction. The true damage from Dragon Bloom Plus isn't exactly a huge amount, especially with only 15% speed scaling. It's nice, but I would trade that for the extra cooldown any day. The main appeal for Dragon Bloom as a non-arcane option is that crazy 80% damage reduction for first attacks. Extremely sturdy, but can still be pierced. The New Year's Connors Dragonstones have flat DR, which carves their own niches. Dragon Bloom Plus is alright, but at this very moment, Rearmed Fallen Luminaire is still around with that newest arcane Dragonstone. To be honest, Nel's got really cool base kit skills, but they're not exactly the most synergistic even if you had their tier 4 upgrades. For one, Dragon Bloom gives 80% damage reduction. Counter Roar's 30% is only going to bump that up to 86%, which is not a huge amount at that point. The Reflected Counterattack is also only going to increase damage by 30% of the original damage dealt. It's not counting that 80% amount reduced. It's definitely meant to help for later fights where Dragon Bloom only has 40% DR. Now, as for Attack and Speed Scowl, the tier 3 has a 9 res check. The dragon with one of the lower base res stats with a scowl that doesn't even boost res is pretty suspect. Nel can pull it off against units not res stacking, but definitely not going to have a chance against other high res stackers. For a budget kit, I would consider swapping Counter Roar out for no follow-up. Dragon Bloom only gives % DR for first attacks, so not getting doubled freely by slow units will be better. The Sacred Seal is fine too, but if you really want to run Scowl, then you're probably going to need a res boosting seal. If you want to keep Counter Roar, then Infantry No Follow 4 is an expensive option. On the topic of premium skills, I think Dragon Bloom may be more interesting with other skills. For example, combine that 80% damage reduction with Lagu's Friend's flat DR. You could run a 3 cooldown Iceberger Luna, use Time's Pulse to charge it up, and try to retaliate with a DR piercing special. This would leave room for a distant counter seal, maybe run DC in the A slot. You could maybe do no follow-up or Tempo 4 with a Breath Sacred Seal. Another burst counterattack build after tanking with that 80% damage reduction. If you're just planning to go with the new Arcane Felstone, then Nel's base kit is a little better for that weapon. Realm Luminaire has the same skills, but again, I just feel not using a res-based scowl is kind of iffy. If you're going to go with the Felstone, Nel gets no follow-up to use with her high speed, she gets Slang plus Breath type cooldown to fire specials, and still retains 40% DR for first attacks. Counter Roar is a great pairing for that weapon, and Scowl is a little annoying if it does work. Dragon's Roar is a possible dragon special for Nel, but again, the % DR part of it requires a res check. It's much more lenient than Scowl, but still you need to probably stack res. For another Felstone build, you could run Finish and Tempo 4, half DR Piercing, no Guard Insurance. The C slot is open for a buffing skill like Oath 4, maybe a nice pairing with Guard Echo. If you do want to run one of these res checking skills or even just Arcane Felstone generally, Nel kinda wants all the bonus stats. Bonus Doubler can be risky, but it's great for Nel's stat hunger. Overall, Bridal Nel is another speedy infantry dragon, and we've gotten plenty of those this year. Nel is the green, non-5-star only option to go with the 2 New Year's Kanas. Her lower res does not help with some dragon-specific skills, but you can still try to run them. One of her best weapon options is available on the Fallen banner, which is still here right now, but the New Year's Kanas Dragon Stones are also pretty neat. They have flat DR, Nel's Dragon Bloom has a ton of percent DR. While DR Piercing is becoming pretty common, you cannot ignore that pure power of 80% damage reduction when it does work. Next up, we have a 5-star ult for Lapis. The devs really don't want me to say for Brave Alphonse this year. Now, Bridal Lapis is a Sword Cavalier with 41 HP, 42 attack, 47 speed, 30 defense, and 24 res. Lapis is taking home all the wedding day gifts with 3 super boons for attack, speed, and resistance. Her high base speed, decent attack, typical offensive cav stats. For skills, Lapis has the rare Escuchian defensive special, the popular Flared Sparrow, and Panic Smoke 4. Fun stuff. Lapis is a fairly simple girl, and Wildflower Edge is a fairly complex weapon. There are 2 main parts and a new status, so bear with me. 60 Might Sword with Near Trace Kanto and Accelerate specials. If Lapis initiates or is within 2 spaces of an ally, she gains +5 to all stats. She gets bonus stats equal to 15% of her speed at start of combat. She deals true damage equal to 20% speed and reduces damage from first attacks with an S by X% during combat. This X% value is just like Nel's weapon, so 80% DR for the first fight each phase, 40% DR for all other fights. Combat-wise, Wildflower Edge is a souped-up version of Nel's Dragonstone. For the other part of the weapon, things happen after combat. If Lapis has entered combat in the current turn, then allies within 5 spaces of her can warp to tiles within 2 spaces of Lapis. Also after initiating, Lapis deals 10 damage to target and foes within 2 spaces, and inflicts the new Share Spoil status onto Lapis's main target. The big takeaway is that this new Share Spoil status only applies if Lapis does not kill her enemy and Lapis herself survives. This negative status will debuff the enemy with -5 to all stats. They also lose all their percent DR non-special skills. Lastly, if the enemy initiated on by Lapis's team and they are defeated, then the unit with the killing blow gets an extra action. This extra action has priority over other similar effects and therefore it does not trigger those effects. Good lord. Share Spoils is Lapis's personal skill from Engage. Basically, she sacrifices crit for extra hit rate and avoid if near an ally. Since percent DR is phase dodging equivalent, Share Spoils' extra hit rate translates into DR Piercing. Funnily enough, Lapis isn't really the one benefiting from this effect unless she gets to go again. Ideally, after she attacks, she hits the foe with Share Spoils. Lapis then enables allies to warp to her. Said allies can finish off the Share Spoils enemy and you get an extra action. It's a pretty wild game plan. From the wording, it sounds like, for example, Govig can attack the Share Spoils foe. Her special won't trigger its extra action before Share Spoils. So, if I understood correctly, Govig can attack the Share Spoils enemy, gain an extra action, attack again, trigger Time is Light for a second extra action, attack a third time, trigger her weapon effect for a third extra action, and then potentially attack a 4th time. I assume this applies to Miss Raging Storm and Gale Force as well. Before we focus too much on Share Spoils, regardless if Lapis does or doesn't KO her target, she still becomes a warp beacon for everyone within 5 spaces. Not as wild as young Amaran, but still a very powerful ability to enable aggressive plays. Now, to help Lapis survive and also utilize her good speed, she brings Flow Guard 4. If the unit initiates, 4 things are going to happen. First, inflict -4 speed and defense on the foe. Second, grant full no follow-up effects. Third, inflict guard on the foe, and fourth, if the foe uses an offensive special, inflict +1 cooldown on the foe before the foe's first attack during combat. Flow Guard 4 is breaking the mold by officially having a Scowl ability inheritable by non-dragons. It was only a matter of time. Unlike Scowl, there is no res check, but Flow skills are player phase only. Like Scowl, it only affects offensive specials though. Flow Guard 3 had Guard, which could offset extra special cooldown or just stall special counters entirely. Well, now with Scowl, you technically can counter no Guard, since even if the Guard effect fails, Scowl can just uncharge the foe's special. In addition, with defensive no follow-up, users now counter the basic quick riposte skills, which is very nice. It's a very good tier 4 upgrade. Bridal Lapis' game plan is a player phase focused, although she has mixed phase potential for sure. She wants to initiate, pop Flared Sparrow's instant damage, and have no follow-up with decent amount of stats from her weapon to double. Lapis has Sling, but no other crazy cooldown reduction effects. With her default Escutcheon though, Lapis is focused on surviving over KOing the target. Ideally, she charges Escutcheon's 30% DR to prepare for the counter. In addition, Wildflower Edge gives a massive 80% DR. Flow Guard either A, stalls the foe's special, or B, uses Scout to uncharge their damage specials. It also negates follow-up skills, and hopefully Lapis can tank one basic attack. If Lapis KOs the foe, she has Kanto, plus the Flame Tiles, plus Panic Smoke 4 kicks in. She also deals 10 AoE splash damage and is a warp beacon for allies within 5 spaces. If she doesn't finish off her target, they get hit with Share Spoils. If one of Lapis' allies can finish off the Share Spoils enemy, they get an extra action. That is the general idea of this kit. Massive percent DR plus Guard and Scowl plus no follow-up to stay alive, and let teammates fly in to finish off the job with potentially extra actions. Now, something to think about, Share Spoils does not have any kind of limits it seems like. Lapis can trigger Share Spoils herself. She can also apply Share Spoils to multiple targets if she has extra actions. Gale Force or Dancers should be very interesting teammates. Gale Force will require Heavy Blade for that chance to activate though. On the topic of specials, do we forgo Escutcheon for something like No Quarter? While Lapis has a unique playstyle, it's not going for the one round like usual worth it. With Share Spoils as extra action, you could argue it's better to not finish off the kill, but it's possible things like Warp Bubble or Kanto Control limit the ability to get allies into attack position afterwards. There is always a risk when you leave foes alive. To fill out the build for Sacred Seals, extra HP from Squad A Seals would be nice. Clash, Catch, Solos all work for stat boost. To help soften up tanks, you could add an extra Poison Strike or Savage Blow. You take in a page out of Legendary Sigurd. If no one else is using it, Quick Impulse could pre-charge Escutcheon. It could work. Fury is another option to enable Wings of Mercy from outside 5 spaces. I'm not sure if Lapis will going to get low enough though, with 80% damage reduction and defensive special both triggering. In the B slot, don't think most are going to change out Flow Guard, but technically you could avoid any kind of counter with Wind or Water Sweep. You tank Lapis' own damage further, but hey, not getting hit at all is better than chancing it with % DR and guard effects. For damage, I wouldn't recommend it, but Assassin Strike to complete the combo is there. Potent could be fun, maybe for mixed phase, and you could opt for Catch or Clash A skills for that kind of build. Usually Lapis will have no A or B skill active for enemy phase, but her weapon has 80% damage reduction for that first fight, which is basically Fallen Star type shenanigans. She specializes in enabling player phase tactics, but you could do mixed phase builds if you can get other things like no follow-up in other ways. For general tanking, I would even keep an eye on the new Excel A skill, which we'll talk about later. In conclusion, Bridal Lapis is a very intriguing unit, although leaving foes alive in Fae has its risk. Share Spoils giving an extra action is the reward to that risk, and honestly it's pretty dang good incentive. Lapis must survive though, she is not Mr. Sigurd. If you're looking for a teammate to incorporate with Lapis' playstyle, stick around, because boy, we are not done with the extra action stuff just yet. Before we open the way to more movement shenanigans, we first have to lock things down. Bridal Embla is here, probably unwillingly, and I'm a bit sad we don't get another Asker ult to mess with the brooding god of our former main enemy. This time though, Embla will be a colorless flying beast unit with 40 HP, 45 attack, 47 speed, 35 defense, and 22 res, outstanding offensive stats with a speed super boom. For ult skills, Embla has Dragon Fang and Attack and Speed Wild, while it's a beast only skill that offers breath type cooldown and 7 HP sustain after combat. It builds out of Attack and Speed Solo 3 if you want to inherit it. For her weapon, Embla has the Closing Florets, 14-my weapon with the usual Flying Beast transformation bonus, aka +1 movement. Every turn, if above 25% HP, Embla and an ally gain -2 cooldown if their special is at max value. If their special is at max value -1, then it's only -1 cooldown. Now, this target ally will either be Embla's support partner if they're within 2 spaces, or if no support is on her team, then it's the highest speed ally within 2 spaces. For combat, Embla will get Near Trace Kanto and excited specials. If above 25% health, she gains bonus stats equal to the number of foes within 3 rows or 3 columns, times 3. This has a base +5, so 3 foes in range will get the max +14 to all stats. In addition, Embla deals true damage equal to 20% of her speed and has flat damage reduction equal to the same amount. With essentially times pulse support, true damage, and flat DR scaling off a certain stat, it sure seems like Bridal Embla has taken some tricks from Lord Asker. The times pulse effect is stronger with -2 cooldown, but it only affects one ally. It also works on specials slightly charged to hit the same -2 cooldown value. If you need help charging up for Legu's friend builds, or maybe a godlike reflexes setup, then Embla is a pretty cool unit to have. As for personal combat, nothing too crazy here, no 80% DR, but some flat damage reduction based on speed. Embla's stat boost works like her mythic ult with a bonus +5, and of course we got Kanto and Slang for general use. Bringing over from Mythic Embla, we have an updated version of Severance. Absolute Closure is a unique C skill. Every turn inflict undefended and feud statuses onto foes within 3 rows or 3 columns. If there is a foe in that 3 row, 3 column range, Embla gives herself a dodge status and neutralizes any penalty on her. Well, except for ones being applied at the same time, for example, tier 4 ploys. Now, these two effects are the exact same as Severance, no changes. New for Bridal Embla, if she is transformed, she gains +4 to all stats and gets full no follow-up in combat. Not a ton else to say, this is just a straight upgrade over the Mythic counterpart, and now you can run Embla in any other season for modes like Aether Raids. If you hate Savior, Embla is the unit to have, and don't forget Feud entirely cuts off the foes from their team support skills. For example, Fail's Scout support or Lumeria's No Guard cannot work. As per usual, Freyr can still block both of these statuses, so be careful in Astra/Anima seasons. Status stacking also gets around Feud. Regarding Embla herself, 40% dodge DR potential plus her new flat DR should be quite nice for taking hits. No follow-up as usual is great for offense and defensive purposes. Bridal Embla will bring one gift for fellow Beast with a new Beast Assault 4 B skill. It's inheritable by all beasts except armored ones, and this skill does 3 things. Removes the condition to transform, inflict -4 speed and defense on the foe, and last, reduce the foe's non-special % DR skills by half. Simply put, Beast Assault is a half DR piercing option for Beast units. Beasts do not get no quarter access, so Beast Calves and Flyers can use this skill if you need to cut down % damage reduction. Also, their transformation bonuses are pretty strong. Meanwhile, Infantry Beasts do have other options such as Physical No Follow 4, they could go all in with Special Spiral 4 or Legu's Friend. That said, Infantry Beasts get Temple when they're transformed, so maybe that's worth having with half DR piercing instead. Overall, Beast Assault is pretty neat, although you definitely need to pair it with some other good effects like no follow-up to double or cooldown for special burst. Since Bridal Embla has her Mythic Alt C skill, she has undefended and feud support, and that's a great boon to have on any team. In addition, she brings some of Asker's cooldown support, although it's tied to her support partner or the fastest ally. I don't think Embla needs her ally in range to get the cooldown herself. That means she can get Dragon Fang to 1 cooldown thanks to Slang. If you want to pre-charge, just slot in Luna or Draconic Aura instead. Now, each turn, Embla should transform, so she gets her 3 movement. If foes are in her 3 row, 3 column range, she gets dodge and cleanses penalties. For combat, Embla gets more stats the more enemies are grouped up. She combines dodge's potential 40% DR with her flat DR scaling from speed. For damage, she has true damage with half DR piercing. Wild's Breath type cooldown can counteract guard effects to charge Dragon Fang for the follow-up. If you went with Luna, you could double proc it if you get hit back. If you go Gale Force, Embla potentially charges that in one action. After combat, Embla can then retreat with Kanto and heal with Wild's 7 HP sustain. Her entire kit does work on the enemy phase. Regarding Gale Force comps, Embla being able to feed even just one ally with -2 cooldown can be huge. For example, someone like Bridal Lapis who has a tougher time with cooldown reduction. When undefended and feud, it also makes it easier to pick a target for that first Gale Force proc. Of course, feel free to just charge any special. Pair Embla with Asker for some crazy quick specials turn 1. For some other skills, if you are fine without DR piercing, you could use Beast Sense for another dodge % DR to stack with. Counterwear also has 30% damage reduction plus healing to stack with Wild. Aerial maneuvers, Wind Water Sweep, or Desperation can be fun, but I do think having a Beast B skill to transform at any time is just too nice to not have. For A skills, if you pre-charge lower cooldown specials, you technically may not need Wild, so why not Flared Sparrow? Surge could be good for healing, but Clash can work if debuffs do sneak by Embla's cleanse. For Sacred Seals, Guard is nice since Bridal Embla has lost that effect. Squad A seals for HP and stats, maybe a Flyer Mobility skill to further help allies get around. Before we end, another mention for attack and speed excel. This A skill has flat DR, so if you run Lord Kono specials that pre-charge, you could swap off Wild for more defense. Wild does have that healing part built in though. Honestly, maybe you could do some crazy Pavis or Miracle setups with Wild's cooldown reduction. Overall, Bridal Embla brings more to the table than her Mythic ult while keeping that undefended and feud support. Bringing cooldown help is always nice, although you're getting to use ally support or ensure the highest speed ally is nearby. Personal combat isn't anything super new or crazy, but with a quick special and partial DR piercing, Embla definitely has more damage to inflict. Having percent DR plus flat DR is also a nice defensive combo. All around, very nice ult. Last up for today, seems like we are officially celebrating the resolution to Book 6 with a dual pairing of Sharena and Veronica. In their special artwork, you're actually going to see the Asker and Embla dolls from the end of Book 6 animation. I know the Queen is about to possibly kick the bucket, but man, Sharena already setting up those wedding plans. Now, for her first ult in about 6 years, dual Sharena will be a Lance Cavalier. For stats, she has 40 HP, 44 attack, 47 speed, 32 defense, 21 res, attack and space super boons, very solid stuff. For ult skills, Sharena has no quarter and potent 4. Wow, I'm pretty surprised they're putting Embla Mart's inheritable skill on a new unit already. Usually they wait for the rerun before doling out those new OP skills. For their weapon, Sharena and Veronica have the United Bouquet, 16 Might Lance. At start of turn, if above 25% HP, gain +6 attack and speed field balls, and Sharena can move 1 extra space. For combat, she has accelerated specials. If above 25% HP, grant bonus stats equal to the number of allies within 3 rows or 3 columns, times 3 with a base +5. You have 3 allies in range for a max +14 to all stats. Sharena also gets full no follow-up effects. She does true damage equal to 20% speed, and heals X HP on every attack. X is the number of spaces moved by the initiator, times 3. If you move 4 spaces, you get 12 HP healed on hit. For the most part, nothing super wild just yet. Sharena joins Legendary Sigurd and Summer Ephraim as natural 4 movement calves. She can use her 4 movement to proc her healing, and she can double up with no follow-up, assuming she outspeeds. Same goes for the true damage portion. For stats, Sharena uses Endless Condition, but it counts allies instead of enemies. If you're not super spread out, that's a ton of stats for this duo. To make the most of her rare focus, Sharena brings her own unique C skill. Forever Yours grants Kanto distance +1, max of Kanto 4. If Sharena initiates or is within 3 spaces of an ally, she gains +4 to all stats, 40% DR for all attacks minus AoE, and gains full tempo effects. No guard and no special charge. In addition, after Sharena ends her turn, if another ally within 3 spaces enters combat, then after their combat, Sharena gains an extra action. If she had triggered Kanto already, re-enable Kanto usage. Good lord. So, first off, add 40% DR and tempo to Sharena's kit. She's just bringing all those infantry skills with her. Kanto distance +1 lets Sharena retreat 4 spaces if she initiates from 4 spaces out. It's honestly pretty absurd Kanto range. And then if Sharena has acted, if anyone fights near her, she gets to act again and use Kanto again. First time we've seen Kanto being able to be re-enabled. Also, Forever Yours' extra action will trigger even if Sharena's ally dies in combat. That is pretty nuts. The extra action is once per turn, and I think the extra condition is there to stop things like Brave Marianne's special from giving Sharena another turn while saving Forever Yours. You can't stack that. Now, for Sharena and Veronica's dual skill, this may only be used if they have already acted and an ally within 2 spaces enters combat in the current turn. Should that happen, trigger this dual skill to give Sharena another action and re-enable Kanto again. Similar to the ninja duels, this dual skill does require Sharena to act, but she does not need to enter combat like Gale Force. Instead, Sharena needs an ally to enter combat, just like how Forever Yours functions. Basically, dual Sharena can get 3 actions by herself without Gale Force. Now, something we need to test is if this dual skill requires Sharena to act, then have an ally fight in that order. It doesn't say it has to be in order, so I think you could have an ally fight within 3 spaces, Sharena acts, and then you can still trigger the dual skill. That is only 2 actions for Sharena, which is suboptimal, but she hasn't used Forever Yours in that scenario. So she could act that second time, have another ally fight, and then Forever Yours triggers then. That should work, but I haven't tested it myself. Last new skill for today is Attack and Speed Excel. Finally, we talk about it. This is an inheritable A skill for all melee units except armor. It comes out of Attack and Speed Clash 3, and you'll see why. This skill states, if unit or foe initiates combat after moving, grants +6 attack and speed and a bonus +X. X is equal to the number of spaces moved by the initiator with a max of 4 spaces. Now, if the unit initiates combat, they reduce damage by X times 3 during combat. If the foe triggers their damage special, reduce damage again by the same amount. First off, Excel is the same as Clash stat-wise and requires movement to even activate. With 4 spaces moved, you can get the +10 attack and speed max. Instead of debuff neutralization, Excel offers flat damage reduction. 4 spaces times 3 equals 12 max flat DR, which is pretty dang good. Besides Sharena though, most units are going to need to use warping to hit that cap. The first flat DR source also only applies when you initiate. The second flat DR source can stack with the first, but this only applies when the foe is actually triggering their offensive special. Basically, while it is possible to get 24 flat DR from this skill, you are not going to get that all the time. Generally, you're going to want to initiate since that flat DR effect applies to all hits taken. For enemy phase though, you're only going to get flat DR if the foe triggers their special, and that is 12 flat DR max. Now, I know what some people are thinking, Excel plus Lagu's Friend and maybe a weapon like New Year's Melkana's Dragonstone for 3 flat DR sources. Sounds hilarious, but again, Excel only gets flat DR on enemy phase when it's a special, and it depends on movement for higher flat DR values. This is a skill we need to keep an eye on, but with things like defensive specials and Emblem Ike's Ring, well, it's another defensive tool to add on the pile. Duo Sharena and Veronica have a lot of good skills. They have 4 movement, free attack and speed field boss, no follow-up, tempo, true damage, healing on hit, and lots of stats. Forever Yours and Potent grant 58% DR for all hits, and then Excel offers up to 12 flat DR when initiating since Sharena has that 4 movement. If the foe triggers a special, she gets extra flat DR to tank. If Sharena can double while getting hit, she procs no quarter for DR piercing thanks to tempo. Now, Potent may grant a 3rd attack or can just help double in very high speed battles. After combat, if this is where things start to get wild, Sharena has contour distance +1. If an ally fights within 2 spaces, Sharena gets to act again. This re-enables Kanto, and the dual skill grants another action plus another Kanto. I thought Lapis was a little crazy, but dual Sharena potentially getting 3 actions without Gale Force is something else. You will need another cooldown skill, but with tempo, Gale Force is also able to be used if you want to run it. Now, to play around Sharena's extra actions, you don't have to attack first. For example, you can use her high movement to reposition an ally forward, then Kanto aggressively. Have that ally make an attack to refresh Sharena. Maybe she could be a decent snag for a user. Another spicy skill at the cost of combat would be Pass, maybe Wings of Mercy. I don't know how the AI is going to handle it, but in the player's hands, you definitely can be very aggressive with Sharena. For other skills, as usual, Flared Strike's on the table. This one is kind of dirty if you keep hitting foes in the flame tiles. Maybe throw in Savage Blow as a seal. Surge Sparrow could be fun for healing, although Sharena already has pretty decent healing. While Excel is cool, you could do Clash for pure speed, while speed and defense also could work, although Potent's extra % DR is pretty nice to have. For cooldown, Heavy Blade is our lone option. Guard works nicely with tempo. Since Sharena thrives on allies acting, Blade Session can reach full value faster. Attack and Speed solo or squad A seals are fine as well. All in all, dual Sharena and Veronica will be quite chaotic. Extra action mechanics are always iffy, man. It feels like Sharena specifically is trying to call out a certain turn-stopping duo or 2. Her dual skill, and Forever Yours, may be able to counteract things like Leon's shenanigans, albeit that's not going to stop him from nuking someone. Still, if Leon, for example, freezes Sharena, as long as an ally fights nearby, even if they die, Sharena gets refreshed. Duo Sharena will be pretty wild in the player's hands. Most of her kit works on either phase, and she has a good mix of stuff. We'll have to see just how many turns can Sharena actually pull off in practice though. Now, that'll wrap up this banner breakdown for the 2024 Bridal Banner. Some fun picks and a lot of great skills as well. Following the ladies, Groom Alchrist will be our Tempest Shrouds unit. He's been de-armed of his skills, but he's bringing in some new free-to-play ones. Archers also just have a million fun weapons to select from. Now, let me know your thoughts on the Bridal Banner, and we'll talk about Alchrist next time. I got a bit lucky on the Fallen Banner, so I stopped summoning early. I think I'm going to take that Bridal bait though. Thank you for watching, good luck on your own summons, and I will see you in the next video.